Hey, everybody. Welcome to Odd and Untold, the podcast where we talk about all things strange and spooky. And this week, I'm going to try to tie some things in. I don't know if you guys have heard here in the New York, New Jersey area, we've been having a lot of drone sightings, and nobody seems to know where they're coming from. So it's been mainly in Jersey, but also here over Staten Island, and people are talking about these drones, and they're apparently the size of cars or small cars. They don't seem to be like the commercially available drones that most people can get and fly. So there's a lot of speculation, a lot of conspiracy theories. Is this our government? Is this the military? Is this Elon Musk? Is this Amazon? Is this Iran? Are these UFOs? I mean, there's just so many different theories about what these drones are. The local radio stations keep talking about it. 101.5 New Jersey, like it's just 24/7 drone talk. They just drone on and on about the drones. And there's all sorts of people saying we should shoot them down and blah blah blah. And the government should tell us what they are. I'm not sure what to make of these. I'm not going to go into too much detail with this tonight. It did inspire this episode a little bit, but they're drones. They're clearly drones. They have uh, the navigation lights on them, the red and the green, and they're following FAA regulations. So I don't think this is China or Iran or a terrorist group. You'd think they would disable those lights, so if they wanted to spy on people, they could spy on people and not be seen. Secondly, anybody shooting these things down is taking a huge risk because one, you're shooting guns into the air, and two, if you do manage to bring one of these things down, you don't know where it's going to come down. It could, crash through a child's bedroom. So just very strange, but it's all the rage here. If you're not in the tri-state area here, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, you may not have heard, but like I said, here it's just all we keep hearing about are these drones, and the government either doesn't know what they are or they're not saying what they are. So nobody quite knows. But it is Christmas time, and we have these drones or UFOs, this invasion. And I thought it'd be cool to do some Christmas UFO sightings. And there's this conspiracy theory that goes back, and it's mainly like the ancient alien people who proposed that the Star of Bethlehem, the Christmas star that led the three wise men to Jesus and Mary and Joseph, was a UFO. It was an alien spaceship. And but again, this is like ancient aliens type people, chariots of the gods people who think that everything in biblical times was a UFO. And I'm not saying that's not true or not possible or not plausible for some of the stories. I know in the book of Ezekiel, he mentions this craft that comes down, and it almost sounds like landing gear and beings that come out of it. Sounds very UFO-ish if you read the story, and I have many times, and you can make a case that that's a UFO. Star of Bethlehem, I don't know, but I thought I'd do some UFO Christmas sightings this year. So I'm going to do a few from Christmas Eve, a few from Christmas Day of last year, because Christmas hasn't happened yet this year. So we're going to get to that in a little bit, and deviating a little bit from what I normally do, which is I pick, a county or a region or a borough of New York, but a localized batch of sightings, whether it's Bigfoot or UFOs. But this week it's going to be just from all over, but it's happening on either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. So I thought that would be fun. Just do a little Christmas episode. And speaking of Christmas episodes, next week, John will be back on the show. We're going to be talking more Christmas horror movies. We did an episode last year with Christmas horror movies, and great fun doing that and just talking about Christmas horror movies, because they don't seem to go together, but there's a plethora of Christmas horror movies with axe wielding Santas and Santas who kill people. And we talked a little bit more about just some supernatural aspects of Christmas movies, like in A Christmas Carol. I mean, the whole movie is based around ghosts of Christmas past and present and future. So we're going to be doing that next week. A couple weeks ago, we did an episode about Thanksgiving horror movies, and I published it the day after Thanksgiving, and nobody watched it. So I think it's just after Thanksgiving, people just like they're automatically in the Christmas mood. So I think publishing it the day after Christmas was a bad idea because, like I said, nobody watched it. So if you haven't seen it and you want to hear about some really cool Thanksgiving horror movies, and that is a thing, that is a real thing, you can go back and watch that. It was 2 weeks ago. the day after Thanksgiving it published, but it's just called Thanksgiving Horror Movies with John. And we had a great time filming it and talking about it. And I always have fun talking to John. So go back and check that one out if you haven't seen it. It's pretty cool. And next week, look forward to Christmas horror movies, volume 2, because like I said, we did one last year. I'll link to that in the description below. But we always have fun talking about that stuff. I mean, I talk a lot of paranormal stuff on here and Bigfoot and real life stuff. But it's fun sometimes just to talk about the horror movies that have a theme, 4th of July or Christmas or Thanksgiving or Halloween. I mean, tons of Halloween movies. So yeah, that'll be next week, next Friday. So stay tuned for that. And I guess for now, we will move on to the UFOs. Okay, so once again, I'm using NUFORC, which is the National UFO Reporting Center, their database. And I just find them to be a really great resource of UFO sightings. They have a map, so if you just want to search by location, you can do that. If you want to search by date, you can do that. So I've just filtered some reports from late December of last year. So a couple from Christmas Eve, a couple from Christmas Day, and just to stay on theme for Christmas. And this first story actually comes from Long Branch, New Jersey. So, but this is last year before this whole drone thing was going on. But this is a cool story. Most of the stories tonight, I mean, all the stories tonight are cool. And I will, of course, as I do, give my thoughts after reading the story, whether I can debunk it or whether I think it's real or impressive. And you guys know, anybody who's been listening for a while now knows how I roll with these things. So let us get into this first story. Like I said, it was Long Branch, New Jersey. All of these, well, either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. So this one is from Christmas Eve of 2023. So just, a little over a year ago. Long Branch, New Jersey. Location details: saw objects over Greens Avenue and Cedar Avenue approximately 4 times during walk. They were rectangular in shape. They were white/gray. Estimated size 30 to 50 feet wide by 15 to 30 feet across. So fairly large. Closest distance about 500 feet. They estimate these were going about 400 miles an hour. Lights were on the object, aura or haze around the object. So this witness says, saw 2 rectangular craft at least 4 times during a walk. Also saw a stationary green pulsing light in the bottom of the clouds. So they go on to say, while walking my dog at approximately 8:30 on Christmas Eve, I saw 2 rectangular craft flying. I saw them at least 4 points during the walk. One craft had 3 red lights on the bottom. The other had 2 green lights. Lights were evenly spaced in a line across the center of the bottom of the crafts. At one point, the craft with red lights was flying in a straight line above me, and it stopped on a dime for a few seconds, then shot off in the opposite direction at an angle. At another point, while walking back home, I witnessed a large green stationary light slowly blinking in the bottom of the clouds. When getting back to my door and taking one last look before entering the house, I saw the craft with green lights flying fairly low and steady in an easterly direction over Cedar Avenue. This last view of the object was probably the closest. Object didn't appear to look metallic. It looked almost like a ceramic material. At this point, I went inside and told my fiance what I had seen. Also, there were no propellers, jets, or visible means of propulsion, and no sound. And these are key points. I did not have my phone/camera on me at the time, and even if I did, I may have been too awestruck to think to use it, which is very common in UFO sightings, Bigfoot sightings. Everyone's like, why didn't you film it? If you're shocked by what you're seeing, you're not immediately thinking to film. You're just trying to figure out what you're seeing. Not sure if this is related, but for approximately 2 weeks afterward, I saw a flashing green orb on several occasions. I did get video of this, but it may be unrelated and or a drone. So I appreciate that he says that might be a drone. And I've mentioned this before in UFO episodes. All conventional aircraft have the port and starboard lights, the red and the green. And this sounds very Christmassy. It's red and green lights, but he's seeing craft with red lights and 2 green lights, and there's too many lights. So these, most airplanes have 1 red light and 1 green light, and that's on the tip of the wings, as like I said, for port and starboard. You'll see these on boats too, the red and the green. So these he's seeing, they're flying, they're stopping, they're zooming off. They're not acting like planes. There's no sound. And again, if you're out at night and the planes are low enough, you're going to hear them. Even if they're high up in the sky, you can hear some residual engine noise or jet noise. So yeah, it almost sounds a little kitschy because it's like, it's not orange lights, it's not purple lights, it's red and green. So it sounds very Christmas appropriate. Uh, but he's seeing a stationary green light blinking at the bottom of the clouds. And that's weird because the navigation lights on planes usually don't blink. They're just red and green and they're on. And there's other flashing lights on planes. So very strange. This was in New Jersey, like I said, Long Branch, and just a guy out walking his dog. There's no video here of the other object he said he saw 2 weeks earlier. I'm guessing he either didn't upload it or he did upload it and it was just not impressive. He's saying it may have been a drone. So I do appreciate him sort of debunking his own thing. But the other things he saw on Christmas Eve sound weird. So I don't know what to make of those. But definitely moving in a way that aircraft shouldn't move. And again, this was a year ago. They could be drones. People could put different lights on the drones. Who knows? But even drones, I mean, I've seen drones in my neighborhood and you always kind of hear the little propellers. You hear them. And he's saying he was close enough where he should have heard something. If it was only 500 feet away, he should have heard some propeller noise or engine noise. So what do you guys think of this one? Cool Christmas Eve UFO sighting. Okay, so the second story is a bit of a weird one. This takes place on Christmas Day of 2023 from Tacoma, Washington. And it was viewed from the upper bedroom window, cloudy outside. He says he saw a light. It was out of a window looking east, closest distance about 1,000 feet. This is a weird one. So he says lights shining through upper bedroom, no noise. Heard weird whispers coming from daughter's bedroom. So right there, that's creepy. So is this ghosts? Is this aliens? Is this just him hallucinating? Her hallucinating? Don't know. Went into the bedroom. She was sound asleep and did not see anything in her room. Bedroom is located on top of second story of home. About 10 minutes later, strange lights were reflecting on the bedroom wall. No sounds, just lights, bright enough to catch my eye. Looking outside, I saw a spotlight staying in the same spot, no sound, and the lights were moving slowly. I ended up sleeping in her bed, and it was very strange. So there's a picture here, and this looks like maybe from a front door camera that he or she pulled. And there's definitely this weird beam of light shining down. It doesn't sound like he saw it or she saw it. This person saw an object. They're saying almost like a spotlight. But spotlights tend to move, especially if they're trying to attract attention to a business. And this looks very low to the ground. And again, it's hard to tell from a picture. I always say I try to give people who post on these sites the benefit of the doubt. I don't know why people would post anonymously to hoax things or to trick people. Of course, some of those things are going to get through on any of these databases, whether it's New Fork or the BFRO. People are going to hoax things. People are going to lie. I get that, but this just sounds like a very weird story. He's hearing whispers. And was it whispers? Was he hearing maybe the craft outside? This picture is weird. I mean, there's like this beam of light that just kind of ends and it's very low to the ground. I mean, you can see two-story houses across the street from, it looks like this person's front door camera, but there's this beam of light coming down from, it looks like nothing. There's like nothing there. So is this a cloaked craft? Is this just a light residue on the lens? They clearly saw something, slept in their daughter's room, heard something, heard whispering. So a creepy story for Christmas, you know. Is it Santa Claus? Who knows? But I do like when they attach pictures, and we're going to get to a story in a little bit that does have pictures. And again, not fully convincing because you zoom into a certain amount and you lose all detail. But this one is weird, and it could just be a reflection. I don't know. But you have the story, then you have this photographic evidence. All these things do start to pile up. Doesn't mean it was a UFO. Doesn't mean it was an alien spacecraft. It could have been military. It could have been some sort of promo. It could have been somebody just going crazy with their Christmas lights, and they had a spotlight in their yard, and this person wakes up, you know, looks like this happened like 3:30 in the morning. So middle of the night. Could have been, you know, waking dreams. They're hearing whispers. They're seeing lights. I tend to not really put too much credence into anything that happens when people are sleeping or woken up. There's just too much room for error, too much room for you're still dreaming or you're still in that kind of not quite lucid state. So not saying this person's lying, not saying this person didn't see what they saw, but a little less impressive to me because of the questionable lucidity of the person. The first story, this guy out walking his dog. So interesting. So let us move on to our next story. Okay, so our next story also happens on Christmas Day. And this one is from Lander, Wyoming. Location details on the hill from the mountains at Sinks Canyon in Rosewood. The shape was a circle. It was white in color, at least the size of a minivan at smallest. So it's fairly small, but definitely not a drone, unless you believe these New Jersey drone sightings where they say they're the size of a car. Closest distance, they say not sure, super high up in the sky. Estimated speed, speed of a jet at least. There were lights on the object and an aura or haze around it. So again, this aura or haze. They say kept lighting up bright and then dimming until invisible, disappeared and reappeared, changed direction a lot, and multiple appeared at once. So we hear this a lot in UFO stories too, that it's not just one object, that this is a plane that's going to just, travel along its flight path and be done with it. If it's a helicopter, you're going to hear the rotors, you're going to see the navigation lights. And even the helicopters can fly erratically, but for the most part, they don't. You're talking about traffic helicopters, police helicopters, or tourist helicopters. There's not many differences there, but most of them are not going to fly very erratically. So they go on to say, a first one came over the mountains on the horizon. It was super bright and moving very fast upwards. Then it dimmed until it could not be seen. Around 30 seconds later, it reappeared, then did the same thing again. The next time it reappeared, another was next to it and following it. So now it's come back and there's a second object. They were moving from one direction to another and following each other, both bright. One dimmed and then the other one did too. The final time there were three. So now you have a third aircraft or object, and the exact events happened again, taking a little longer this time. Everything was strangely silent for being out in the middle of the country. So this reminds me of a story. To go back to John and I talked about stuff we had seen at Bantam Lake, and I'll link to that episode down below as well. But he had seen these weird lights he described them as almost like dancing with each other and just dancing around each other. They're not flying in straight lines. They're not doing maneuvers like jets would do or helicopters would do. They're these lights that were just kind of dancing around each other and following each other. And that's what this kind of sounds like. It's just they're following each other. They're dimming. Very strange. White lights. He's not mentioning any navigation lights. There's no red or green. And again, strangely silent for being out in the middle of the country. And I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to say it again. I've been in the Adirondacks, and even planes that are way, way, way high up, you hear them. You hear the jet as it goes overhead. It may, you see the plane first, and then you might hear the engine noise after, but you always hear it. And again, in the city, it's a little bit tougher, but when you get out to the country and it's quiet and it's dark, you see things and you're going to hear things much better than you would in the city. And like I said, even when they're up real high, you're going to hear that engine whine. And he's saying everything was strangely silent. And multiple objects disappearing, dimming. Conventional aircraft don't do that. They don't dim their lights. They don't do these sorts of maneuvers. So I thought this one was pretty cool. This one, hard for me to debunk. Again, when I say UFO, I don't necessarily mean alien extraterrestrial aircraft, just unidentified. Like, who knows? Clearly not planes, clearly not helicopters. So what are they? Let us move on. Okay, so we have another story from Wyoming, this one from Encampment, Wyoming. This happened on Christmas Day. Looks like sometime in the evening. About 4:45 in the evening in the mountains, and they saw this next to the moon. The shape was cylinder, and this one has some pictures. So I strongly advise you watch this episode just so you can see the photos. But again, I'm going to link to all of these stories in the description, so you guys can just click on that if you want to just go right to the website and see the report. So they don't know the size, very big, possibly, but it was at a distance. The color was white. Closest distance unknown, near the moon but far away. And they say white tic-tac shaped dot near the moon stayed still, then disappeared. Two rational skeptics looked out a rolled down car window to see a still star in the sky. Only it was white and tic-tac shaped / cylindrical. It was near the moon. We kept driving. Only when I tried to take more photos, I couldn't see it anymore. It possibly disappeared behind clouds or in some other way. There are photos, and here they are. And the first few, you can definitely see a little white something in the sky, and it looks like sunset. You can see like these pink clouds down by the horizon, and this white object is in the bluer part of the sky. And if you zoom in, it's definitely cylindrical. One of the photos looks like it might have wings or domes on top. I mean, this one looks particularly saucer, like classic flying saucer shape, like the saucer section of the Enterprise from Star Trek. The other photos definitely show more of like a rectangular or tic-tac shape. And this can also just be from zooming in so much. When you are that zoomed in, you're not holding the camera perfectly still. Your hand is shaking just enough. And if you get a little bit of motion blur, that could be a star, that could be another object very, very far away that's just being blurred. Because if you look at the pictures, it's like at a different angle in each picture. So I do wonder if this is some motion blur. But they're saying it sort of stood still and then disappeared. So a star is not going to disappear. It doesn't look like a cloudy night. It looks like wherever this object was. I mean, there are some clouds in low on the horizon, but where this object is, there's no other clouds. It's clear. So did it disappear into a cloud? Who knows? But again, at first they thought it was a star, and then they're seeing that it was cylindrical. It says it was near the moon, but there's no moon in these photos, so maybe not as near to the moon as they're leading us to believe here. But not sure what to make of this one. Like I said, when you zoom in too much, you're going to get this little bit of blur and pixelization, because cell phone cameras are computers. It's not film. And when it can't really focus on something, it's going to pixelate it. It's going to give you an approximation. And that's what this kind of looks like. But who knows? It's a good catch. I don't see any other stars in the sky. And if that's a bright star like the North Star or Venus, which isn't a star, it's a planet, but a bright object in the sky, you wouldn't think it would just disappear like that. And these guys should have been able to see clouds, because the sun would not have set that quickly after taking these pictures. There's no clouds near this thing. So he says it possibly disappeared behind clouds, but I don't know how long that would have taken after these photos were taken, and they don't mention here. So I always like the ones with photos, but these don't really impress me. But a Christmas Day UFO sighting. Okay, and the last sighting for this episode also takes place on Christmas Day, and this looks like to be about 5:15 local time in Marblehead, Massachusetts. And I only had the one from Christmas Eve, so I thought I had more, but it may have been something that I rejected because some of the stories in here weren't great. Anyway, Marblehead, Massachusetts, wicked cool. Location details: on the beach looking in the direction of Boston Harbor. The shape was chevron shaped, which is kind of like a boomerang triangle sort of shape. It was white in color, 150 feet big, estimated. Closest distance 5 to 10. I don't know what that means, 5 to 10 miles. Varied speeds. It zigzagged in an ascent fast. So it's going up and zigzagging fast. Again, aura or haze around the object. And they say odd cloud-like chevron shape vibrated, flickered, and disappeared. We were watching the sunset on the beach, and it was dusk. It had gotten fairly dark except for some orange light in the west. We were looking southwest from the beach toward the direction of Boston Harbor and the South Shore. I said aloud, "Damn it, I never did see a UFO from this beach." An inside joke, because you can see so much sky and lots of planes from Logan Airport from this vantage point. Not 5 seconds later, I see a gray chevron-like cloud formation over Boston Harbor, the only cloud in the sky, or so we thought. It was a very weird shape. It looked sort of like a cloud, but also was in an odd shape for a cloud, and it was all alone and just hovering very still. I said to my partner, "Wait, what is that?" We watched it for a while, and he said, "It's a cloud, but it's changing shape." This thing was staying in the same place, but rapidly changing shape, almost vibrating, in impossible ways, and so quickly we could hardly process what we were seeing. At one point, it stretched long into a line like a cigar, and then it flickered back into the chevron shape, and then it kept sort of centralizing into this dot, expanding out, etc. My partner, who was very skeptical, said, "A cloud can't move that fast." It was moving so fast and flickering like that it was a blur. I said to him, it's trying to disappear because it was sort of flickering, fading in place and consolidating into this weird dot and then completely disappeared from the sky. My partner is very skeptical and he said he has no explanation for what it was, has never seen anything like it. So there's no picture here. Could this have been a cloud? I don't know. It seems like at first that's what they thought it was. There's nothing else in the sky. You just have this one little cloud that's chevron shaped, and then it's moving. The flickering, that's weird. And a cloud, I don't know if a cloud would then go back into its original shape and then centralizing into a dot and then expanding and then centralizing, expanding. If the wind is blowing this cloud, it would blow it into a different shape. There's no follow-up investigation with many of these reports, and I wish there were. If you go to the BFRO website for Bigfoot sightings, 9 times out of 10 there's a follow-up, and the investigators will ask follow-up questions because the original narrative may not really expand on certain key points. And I wish this one had a follow-up because I think there's some key points in here that, questions that need to be asked in order to get a better understanding of what this was. Was this a cloud? It sounds like it could be, but I would like to think that functioning adults would understand what a cloud is versus what some weird object is that is changing shape, zigzagging, sort of contracting into a little dot and then widening again. And clouds do change shape, but I can't recall ever seeing a cloud go back to the shape it was. I'll see a cloud in the sky and be like, oh, that looks like a rabbit or whatever, and then 10 minutes later it looks like Godzilla, and then a few minutes later it looks like something else, but it never kind of goes back to looking like Godzilla. It from your vantage point, maybe from someone else's, but clouds are just water vapor, and they're not going to expand and contract and go back into its original shape. That to me is the thing that makes me wonder about this and not completely throw it out as a cloud as much as I would like to, because it does sound like maybe it was a cloud, but the fact that it goes back to that original shape is interesting to me. So again, I wish they had taken photos. I wish there was a follow-up investigation, but there is none. And that is sad to me. But let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments below. Okay, everybody, that's going to end this week's episode. I just wanted to pick a few UFO sightings from Christmas. Keeping it short this week. Again, I've had a bit of a crazy week. My father, please, everybody keep my dad in your thoughts and prayers. He's been sick. He was hospitalized again this week. He's on his way home. So he's okay now, but, he's a tough SOB. And, he got me into all this. So the reason you're watching this podcast is because of him. He got me into the paranormal. He got me into the music I'm into. He got me into playing guitar. And, just so much of who I am is because of him, especially this paranormal stuff. I mean, I was a wee lad and watching UFO documentaries and In Search Of, and those speculation shows like Overlords of the UFO that they used to run, Saturday nights, real late, and cheesy productions. And, but that's where my interest came from. It was just him and his own stories of UFOs and ghosts, and he's got a lot of them, and he does want to come on the show at some point. So when he's feeling better, I'll have him on because he's got some really cool stories. And that's what I grew up with. I just grew up with the paranormal and rock and roll and playing guitar and going camping. I mean, that's all my dad, So keep him in your thoughts and prayers, everybody. This is for you, Dad. Get better soon. You're tough as nails, and you're going to beat this. And until next time, everybody, question everything. All these stories, some of them sound really good. Some of them sound not so good. The good ones, you have to question just as much as the bad ones. The ones that aren't so sensational. They're not seeing it. They're seeing a beam of light, or they're seeing a cloud that kind of changes shape. Was it a cloud? Probably. I don't want to dismiss what these people saw, but we always have to proceed from a skeptical starting point and let the evidence convince us otherwise, versus going in saying that was a UFO and convincing yourself otherwise, if you know what I mean. You got to start from the skeptical standpoint, and only when you can't explain something, whether it's Bigfoot or a ghost or a UFO or whatever. Start from the skeptical standpoint and let the evidence build, and then you can say, well, damn, I don't know. And you've heard me say this on Bigfoot shows, and I'll say it again. There are certain stories that it's either a complete lie and fabrication, or they saw something strange. There's no middle ground. There's no misidentifying a bear or a helicopter. I mean, some things, and I've done episodes before where someone said, oh, I saw like these spotlight things on the cloud moving. It was spotlights. You know, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. But always proceed from the skeptical standpoint and let the evidence show you the way. And only when you can rule out all the other things can you say, all right, maybe that was something inexplicable. Unexplained. I mixed those two words. Been a long week, like I said, everybody. So yeah, rock and roll, everybody. Question everything. Tune in next week. John and I are going to be doing Christmas horror movies once again. And it's always a good time when John and I get together. So hope you guys tune in for that one. In the meantime, go back and check out the Thanksgiving one. We had a lot of fun with that. It's a good episode. And we will see you next week, everybody. Rock and roll.